Hi, ECF kids. Well, let's get right to it. We're going to do a little bit of reviewing today. And we're going to add one more section of Old Testament Bible books. So last time we had gone through all of those on the top shelf, and today we're going to add the major prophets. So let's go up to that point. And then if you didn't see already, I also added a Marco Polo last week that has all of it on there. Well, excuse me, all of the Old Testament books, so that you can sing through with that, because it's easier for you to just hit replay and you can do it as many times as you want. And then that way you'll have them learned in no time at all. All right, so let's give this a try today. Let us sing the books of Moses, of Moses, of Moses. Let us sing the books of Moses, for he wrote the law. First Genesis, then Exodus, Leviticus, and Numbers, and then comes Deuteronomy. There are 5 of them all. Let us sing the books of history, of history, of history. Let us sing the books of history which tell of the Jews. First Joshua, then Judges, and the story of Ruth. Then First and Second Samuel, and First and Second Kings. Then First and Second Chronicles, which give us the records. Then Ezra, Nehemiah, and Esther the queen. Let us sing the books of poetry, of poetry, of poetry. Let us sing the books of poetry, the songs the Jews sang. Job the patient, Psalms of David, and the Proverbs of the wise one, and then Ecclesiastes and the Song of Solomon. Let us sing the major prophets, major prophets, major prophets. Let us sing the major prophets, there are 5 of them all. Isaiah, Jeremiah, who wrote Lamentations, Ezekiel and Daniel, who were true to their God. All right, so next week we will add the minor prophets, and that's the ones that's kind of funny to say, because it's, you get all those names kind of jumbled up. It's almost like a tongue twister, but it's fun. All right, so good job on that. Let's move on to our memory verse. So this is the 3rd week we are working on Isaiah 53 verse 5. And as you can hopefully see, I took out all of the words that we learned a sign for. So we're just going to go through that, and I'm going to leave out that word, but I will do the sign for the word, and hopefully you will remember it and can say it out loud while you're watching. So let's go through it. Isaiah 53:5. But he was for our he was so we could be, he was so we could be. Did you remember? Did you remember the words with the signs in there? I hope you did. All right, I'm going to move this back out of the way. Okay, very good. So for this week, I'm back to a little bit of true and false, since every once in a while we want to throw that in there to help us remember stories from the past. And so what I did was I have just a few from the Bible stories we had in the spring. So I have just a few true and false questions about the Bible stories we just finished in the spring quarter. And then I have just a few from Joseph stories in the Old Testament, because we had that several months back. Okay, so here we go. True, false. Okay, all right, so let's go through these and see how you do. All right, John the Baptist, his parents' names were Zechariah and Anna. True or false? False. It was Zechariah and Elizabeth. Okay, John the Baptist was born to prepare the way for Jesus. True or false? True. When Jesus taught in Nazareth, he was a hero because he grew up there. True or false? False. Remember, he was rejected. That's right. Okay, Jesus asked the woman that he met at the well for water, and then he offered her living water. True. Good job. Okay, now we're going to go on to some questions about Joseph. Joseph's father gave him a colorful coat. True. God made Joseph able to tell the future. True or false? False. What was it Joseph could do? He interpreted dreams. God made him able to do that. Joseph had a dream that showed that his brothers would bow down to him. True or false? That one was true. And then Joseph's brothers were so jealous and angry that they sold him into slavery. True. And then the last one, Joseph ended up living in Babylon. False. Where was he? He was in Egypt. That's right. Okay. Well, so moving on to this week's lesson. So remember that we have been having stories. Remember, all the stories have been found in the Gospels. And we had a couple stories recently about different miracles that Jesus performed. So let's just do kind of a quick review. So on this one, remember that Jesus healed 10 men of leprosy, which is a skin disease. But remember, one of them came back and told Jesus thank you. And then last Sunday was the story of this man Jairus, who came and asked Jesus to please come and heal his daughter who was sick. And so did you watch the Bible story video? The little girl died, didn't she? But Jesus healed her. He raised her from the dead, and so she was alive again. And then the woman who reached through the crowd to touch Jesus' clothes, she was also healed because she had so much faith. So those were the last couple weeks. Today's Bible story is also, I think I told you, in the book of John, so it's in John chapter 5. And this one is about a man who was lame. Lame means you are not able to walk. So this man is laying by a pool called Bethesda. And so the people are all there. In the picture, you can kind of see that several are gathered around who maybe have some sort of a sickness. Well, in this story, Jesus did something interesting. He came to the man who was laying there because he could not walk, and Jesus gave him a command. So, isn't that interesting? Jesus said, pick up your mat and walk. That was what Jesus chose to tell this man who could not walk. So the interesting thing is the man at the pool was not able to help himself, but Jesus healed him and he obeyed Jesus' commands. So in a similar way, remember that we are not able to free ourselves from sin. Jesus calls us to trust him. And when we do, he frees us from the power of sin and death. And then we're able to follow him and obey him. So watch the Bible story video, because then you'll get to see all the rest of that story. But I thought we would do just a fun thing. So I don't know how many of you have seen one of these before, but can you see that okay? This is called a chatterbox. And they actually made these when I was in elementary school. I remember doing this with friends. And so if you would like to make one of these, on the Newswire page, right where you click to watch this video and to watch the Bible story video, I have just a real short 2-minute YouTube video that shows you how to make one of these if you haven't done that before. So if you'd like to make one at home, so here's some commands that I've written in here. And so let's do this as a fun game. So if you haven't done it, their colors are on the top. And so let's say that your brother or sister or a friend chooses the color pink. So then what you would do is you would spell that. So you would go P-I-N-K. And then there's some numbers showing inside there. And they would maybe look in there and they would say, I choose 6. And so you would count that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then this time, whichever number is showing they choose the number, and then you lift up the flap and you find what the command is that's written in there. So like on this one, it says do 10 push-ups. So some of the others that I put in here are pick flowers, bake cookies, read your Bible, write a letter. So those are all different ideas that I came up with to put inside my chatterbox. But if you want to make one at home, you can come up with your own. And that's kind of a fun thing to do with friends or with brothers or sisters at home. Okay, so that's pretty much it for this week. Just real quickly, let's review the big question. So remember, the big question for June is, why did God create people? So are you able to tell me now? God created us to worship Him, to love Him, and to show His glory. So that's an important truth that we need to keep in mind and remember that as we're reading the Bible. So when you hear different stories about what God is doing, remember that there is a bigger meaning behind the scenes because He created each person with a purpose, and that includes us. Okay, and then very last thing, so here's the picture of baby Hudson and baby Sophia. And so just remember that if you would please be praying for them. And then if you would like to make a pretty card, write maybe a memory verse down that you have learned, or just remember to keep saying prayers for them. That would be very special and important to their families. All right, well, you have an amazing week, and I will hopefully see you next week. Bye, ECF Kids.